across all three continents. And our main focus is on event series, conferences, special projects, and we seek to bring together industry professionals regardless of time zones, regardless of nationality, and we'll bring the focus on the continuous innovation of energy technology and application. And right now we have membership, well over 3,000 members in our EIN network all across 100 regions. Of course, expected we have a majority of them located in the USA here in the Bay Area, but we're seeking to continue to expand our membership, broaden our offering to target the demands and the availability of everyone involved. And we are a pure volunteer-based team. We have both student members as well as working professionals from manufacturers through consultancy, through various top universities. And we welcome anyone else who are interested in volunteering to join us to help increase our events and to be able to serve more individuals across the world. And our team is composed of international team, both based in China and Africa and North America. And for those interested, you can read about our background and our specialties in our website online at energyinnovationsnetwork.com. And myself, I'm just an event committee member, a volunteer as well. If you're interested, you can also be a moderator, if that's something to your interest. And we also have a pretty diverse and experienced advisory boards. We draw from both University of California, Berkeley, as well as professional consultants such as Karen Corfey from the Guidehouse Consultancy. And we also have our advisor from China to provide the different perspective as a major green power player in the current market space. And we have done previously both a large annual summit with a single focus. Last year was focused on rising stars around the world trying to do good and improve the climate change. We also have a professional education series targeting those professionals who may not be in the energy industry but want to get into it. And then we also have a mix of events, both mixer, webinar, as well as panels like the one we are joining right now. And we have worked with various event partners from Bay Area Council to New Energy Nexus, Plug and Play, Terradu, and other accelerator, incubator, as well as other energy professional organizations. If you are part of other organizations, we're more than happy to work together to broaden our network and to cross-pollinate. And now to our event today. Slow and steady, unveil the secret sauce of project management in the renewable energy sector. And now let's welcome our panelists. And may I ask Summer if you can start, give a brief intro about who you are, what you do, and the company you work for.
Sounds good, Derek. Thank you for the intro. Can you hear me? Okay, perfect. So hello, everyone. I'm Summer Zhao. I'm a senior product manager at Unveil Energy. And for some of you who may not have heard about Unveil, it is an energy technology company based in California and is also the world's largest solar microinverter producer. It also provides a complete residential PV and storage energy management system for homeowners. And I was brought into Unveil to work on its residential storage and backup gateway product. And that journey has been very exciting so far. And previously, I was at Tesla for 3 years, working on its commercial energy storage product and also its software control simulation platform. It seems Josh joined after I left, so it didn't have any overlap. But that was a very interesting experience as well. So very excited to see a good crowd today and diverse background from the audience. Yeah, looking forward to sharing more and also learning more. And all opinions are mine and not representing any companies.
Thank you, Summer. And I do like to emphasize the panelists here today are all expressing their own opinion and not the official position of any other companies. Maybe exception of Josh, who's the founder of his new company, Daily Energy. And thank you. And as a reminder to the audience, please keep yourself muted and turn off the camera so the bandwidth so we can preserve bandwidth for all the panelists as well as the moderator, me. And if we can, Neru, if you may talk a bit about who you are, who you work for, and your company.
Sure. So I'm Niru Kumar. I am a senior product manager with Bloom Energy. Bloom Energy is a fuel cell company based out of northern San Jose. And I basically look at a lot of product lines, but most importantly, our hospital microgrids, and I look at our retail offering for the retail space. So more exciting things that I'll share about, new things we are doing with new fuel sources like hydrogen and biogas. So that's me.
Thank you very much, Nairu. And Josh, take it away.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Josh. Currently, I just started my own company recently, but prior to that, I've been product manager for about 3 or 4 years. I was working at Ojjo, which is a foundation company, and I worked at Tesla. And then before that, I did some utility scale development at Intersect Power, and spent a lot of time in R&D at Solar City and Zep Solar before they were acquired by Tesla. So looking forward to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. And now let's briefly go over the agenda. We'll have about a 30-minute just for the panel, where we will have moderated question prepared by EIN, and then we'll move into audience questions. Audience, if you have any questions generated by the Q&A session during 30-minute panel, please put that in the chat room, and we'll try to keep track of the questions and bring that up later. As well as, and for those audience who input your question during registration, we have them here with recorded, and we'll bring them up after the 3-minute panel. And now let's head to the first question. So, old product managers, can you tell us a bit more about what is the process for the product management cycle? How do you start the product management process? How do you wrap it up? And rather, is there an end to product management? Summer, please take it away.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so I think the responsibilities of a product manager differ from companies to companies. It's actually pretty different, even from Tesla or Enphase. But I think if we talk about the life cycle product management process, I think that should be pretty similar in the renewable energy industry. So I would say normally there are 5 steps or 5 stages. The first one I would say is the concept stage, where you essentially get market requirements. You figure out the technical and market feasibility assessment. So you assess the market and technical feasibility, and then you converge on a single product concept. So that is the concept stage, and we can say that's stage 0. And then the next one will be planning stage. The planning stage is where you define or finalize the product requirements, market requirements, and product definitions. And that's where you put all the requirements into a document. And this we have market requirement document. We put them into the document. We also analyze and put in the competitive analysis, the forecast, the market forecast, the targeted cost, the financials, the pricing. So all the things regarding the product will go into that document. And this is also a stage where you bring all stakeholders in the company with you on the same page. So the very important one will be engineering team. So they have to buy in on your product requirements, and they have to translate your requirements into an engineering requirements. They typically write something like an engineering requirement document. This is like a 1-to-1 translation of your market requirements into the specific engineering requirements to be executed. So I would say this is like the most important stage of a product management, because this is where you go from 0 to 1 on a product concept and to finalize it. And this is where you also talk to quality team, talk to the PM team. So there will be a project manager who will help you to figure out the resources, planning, the schedule, and the budget of the product. And after this stage, I would say the product concept and the product design is pretty much finalized. And we usually have a large group of meetings with C-suite level managers to approve that, okay, this product is ready to go into production. And then the next stage will be development stage, where the product is, we have a prototype and have mass production, verification. And the next one will be, I would say the verification stage. The third stage will be verification, where we build alpha sites and beta sites. We put those storage systems, PV system, in the site to test if they achieve the functionalities that it should. And this is where you start doing, as a product manager, start doing go-to-market plan, like GTM, because this is the next stage. The 4th stage will be general availability. The product will go to the mass market, and you have to aggregate all the documents, resources, training materials for this product to be ready for the market. And then the last stage is obviously end of life. After this product has been market for 10 or 15 years, what is the transition plan for that? So some product manager work on the very early 0 to 1 stage. Some product manager is mainly product marketing that works on the GTM, go to market. And some product manager are even product owner that works on the technical like details of the product. So, but this is, I would say, like it's the entire cycle of the lifetime product management.
Thank you very much, Summer, for that detailed explanation about product management lifecycle. Now, Josh, is there anything you would like to add?
No, she nailed it. I think it differs company to company, and some people do it all, and some people do a component of that. And you got to know kind of what your role is. I think that's a key point.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we don't do half of that. Like, we have a program management team that really does most of it. My work is pretty much done once I define the market requirements and business case, and then I move to another product, and then I'm called in anytime anybody has a pushback. So most of what Summer described then goes to the program manager, and he or she just does it, and I move on to the next market requirements document.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, at Ojjo, our product was fairly simple, and everyone knew exactly what to do. So it was, there wasn't a lot of defining that had to be done. It was mostly just keeping people in line and preventing them from, ruining it, so to speak. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you all. And maybe for you to start, from your perspective, what kind of products exist in the renewable energy industry? Like when people talk about product management, people talk about, I'm designing the next iPhone, I'm designing the next Mac, a physical consumer product. But what are the products in the renewable energy industry? Is there an equivalent, or is it something a bit more amorphous?
This is a very interesting question, because I work for a company where our platform product is a fuel cell, but I'm considered a layered product manager. So I don't do fuel cells. I actually define how to use the fuel cells as a microgrid. But then when we look at a microgrid, everybody goes, oh, it needs to work with all these other sources. And a microgrid also has different, like, how do I put this, like building codes and policy issues when it goes to different industries. So I don't, and then on the other spectrum, there's, the solar products and the battery products and, the residential, commercial, whatever. And then we are looking at something else. So I don't know if there's like a set of products that you can define in the renewable energy sector. I mean, some folks don't even consider us clean energy as long as we are on natural gas until we move to hydrogen. But then we start moving to hydrogen, and then we become a different product. So sometimes we're never competing with solar, for example. But at the same time, sometimes we have to like tell the story of what a fuel cell is. People start thinking it's a storage system. So like we are not competing, but we are also sometimes speaking against what a solar or battery can do, just to explain what our story is. So I don't know, to your question, very interesting question. There are no set of products in my mind. Like people are wondering what to do with even like solar plus storage and make them into microgrids, etc. So everybody is going many different ways to skin this cat, I would say.
Gosh, do you also see the same lack of bright line boundaries between what I consider products, service, or platform in your field from your developer's perspective, foundation perspective, and now at your own company as a software company?
Can you, I'm sorry, can you kind of, is there like a difference in product management between, the broader electronics or consumer stuff, products versus renewable energy products? Is that what you're asking?
No, sorry, just from your perspective, do you also see this sort of no clearly defined boundaries between what defines a product as a developer, as a foundation company, as a software company?
I might have to punt on that one. I'm not sure I'm following that question. Yeah.
Sorry, apology. I'm sorry if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I think like if we define the different categories of products, one is like generators, like generating power, like PV, wind, hydro, geothermal, and those are type of products. If we think about like consuming and producing, that'll be batteries, EV, electric vehicles, chargers. That's another big sector. We talk about consumer side, like load control, like load monitoring, curb sense. Those are very interesting, like consumer type of products in the market. That's small, easy to install, and gives you like energy consumption of your house. recently there has been smart panels, so you can replace your panel with a smart panel where all your circuits can be controlled. So I was like, maybe like these three broad categories, and I'm definitely missing something, but yeah.
Thank you for the summary. Anything else anyone else want to add? And speaking of that, what are the unusual or unique challenges being a product manager in the renewable energy industry? I believe Summer sort of mentioned the products that renewable energy product managers deal with often have multi-years, if not decades, of operational life. But given the experiment and given the rate at which product can change, how do you balance these kind of unique challenges working in the renewable energy industry while the fundamental product can change so quickly? Josh, would you like to start?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So most of my work lately has been in utility scale, energy, so central generation, front of the meter. And in that case, there's your product management is more or less to keep the products into a profitable space for the company and keep the company afloat. And this industry changes so fast. If you look at when I started in solar, 2012, we've come down 83%, I think is the last number. So it's tough to stay around for 9 years, right? If every year you have to cut 12% off of your costs. So in the space I've been working, it's kind of boring and reductionist, but it's all about cost. And so you're either taking from, there's a couple of buckets you can grab from, right? You can either reduce your costs, you can provide more energy, or you can dip into someone else's buckets. So, and what I mean by dipping in other buckets is if you're, let's say, installing a foundation and you're able to automate the alignment, then you're removing steps downstream and you're able to capture that value. And so it's really just building that business case is, I think, a lot more unique than, say, a consumer product where you can set a price point, you can set an image, you can do certain things to put it into a space. Whereas, anything related to central generation, you're talking about capital deployment, and everyone just cares about how much it costs. So it's a little reductionist and a little boring, but that's the unfortunate situation, I suppose.
And I guess that makes it makes it exciting.
Yeah.
Under pressure, of course, exciting maybe. Summer,
Yeah.
Anything to add?
Yeah, I think like besides costs, I feel like product managers always have a lot to juggle and trade off between like cost, as Josh mentioned, is a key one. Schedule, like time to market. We want the product to go to market as soon as possible, as always. I would say quality is another one. We need the product to have high quality, but that usually means a high long time to market and cost, because we want very good component for long warranty, for example, and that may indicate cost. And the renewable energy industry, because we have a very strict electrical code and certification to follow, and we have to go through very stringent testings and testing procedures to make sure that the product is safe for the customer. So in the previous two companies I worked with, they all held quality to be very high, and that sometimes is could be challenging. The engineering resources as well. Like we want the product, we want 10 requirements, but we don't have this many engineering resources to work on, so we end up always needing to prioritize, and maybe the first phase we can roll out will be 6 requirements, and then the 4 requirements will be put to the next stage. So these are all like important elements, and they're sometimes contradicting each other. So it's very important to like play the balance.
Yeah. And Neru?
Yeah, and your question was?
Yep. So, what are the challenges of being a product manager in the renewable energy industry? Josh mentioned the continuous drive the cost down. Summer mentioned the constrained energy resources to fit all those needs and the requirement for high quality and the severe compliance regulation.
Sure.
Would you like to add anything else?
Yeah, I mean, this is interesting, right? Like, especially coming from fuel cells, we are always dealing with something new. We don't even sometimes know what price point to go in, because we have no competitor sometimes against whom to price it. And you're like, should I price it against diesel? But then, there are permitting challenges with diesel. Should I price it against solar? But that's a whole different beast. So you're pretty much, the biggest challenge I always feel is which cost target to put. Sometimes literally we pick cost targets like, hey, I think this should do it. And that's not the way, but that's how we pick cost targets. And nobody regards our cost targets sometimes. And we're just like, okay, if it hunts, it hunts. Most of our challenges have been around like policy. We have a very strong policy team because most of the times you're trying to fight for making people understand what fuel cells are, and you get pushback because it's, at least ours is still based out of natural gas. And so, you know, especially in California with the natural gas ban, you have to explain to them, hey, this is the pathway to hydrogen finally. So we have a lot of policy, like a very strong policy team, and working with them becomes very critical, especially like, you know, making California understand what microgrids can truly do and things like that. And the other constraint I feel is, at least from fuel cell perspective, is just building codes and working with like code review, you know, revisions and all that, because half the time our challenge is just making sure fuel cells get into codes and stuff, what storage was back in like 7 or 8 years ago. So that's where we are facing most of our challenges, at least.
Thank you very much, Daryl. And also a reminder to the audience, if you have questions about any of the topics or statements the panelists mentioned, please feel free to put your question in the chat room so we can gather them for the audience Q&A later. And for those individuals who put their questions during the registration process, we'll also be talking about those after our panel. And moving on to the next question. And so a typical task of product managers, as all three of you mentioned, is to identify customer need. I guess the question is, who are your customers for the product managers? Summer, if you can.
The question is, who is your customer?
Yep.
Yeah, so you mean when you define a product, right?
That's correct, sorry, apology.
Okay, yeah, so yeah, that's a good question. I think there are in general 3 groups of audience maybe 3 aspects that we think of when defining the product. The first one is the direct customers that we have. For example, it can be installers, it can be distributors, it can be homeowners, it can be like the CNI customers or even utilities. So having a FaceTime with them and doing interviews with them to understand their pain points and their needs will be very important to get direct feedback from the market. And then the second group will be internal customers. And by that, I mean people like sales, like they're your friends because they have inputs from the market, what the customers need and what's the latest trend, as they get a lot of inputs like that. Another group of people is like sales engineers or field application engineers. They are the people who work closely with sales, but they know the technicality of the product. And they're even better friends of yours because they understand the technical aspects of the products and they can tell you very, very valuable feedback. And all the other people in general, like quality team, they can tell you what went wrong for the previous product. They can engineering team, they have good feedback as well. Even manufacturing team, how to make the product easier and better to make in the factory. And then the third will be competitive analysis, like what are competitors doing in the market, and what we can play catch up or even like be better than the competitors. So yeah, I would say those are the 3 general things that we consider.
And Josh?
Yeah, my customers the customers for the utility scale side stuff is it's usually developers or EPCs, and they have similar interests and they'll often work together to come to a common solution. And they're the 2 main things that affect their financials and their profit really are cost and energy. So right, you can either play with both, or you can just focus on one. So in that way, it's pretty straightforward. You can quickly identify if maybe you have a higher capex up front, but you have a longer useful life, or maybe you have a lower O&M cost. That trade-off makes it pretty easy. I think in the behind the meter applications, you have a wider array of people. You have yourself, the people who do it themselves. You have the people who are maybe one-off or doing a small commercial solar project for the first time. And so you have a much wider, diverse base, which I think makes it a little bit more difficult for sure.
Absolutely. And there, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, so in ours, we are, like I said, layered product managers. We come with the verticals, and so we have to have vertical knowledge. So we already know our customers. Like I know my customers are hospitals, and in different countries. So you have to know different country codes of hospitals, etc. Or I know my customers are retail. So for us, like the customers come. Well, one of the interesting things for us that becomes, which is some of my day-to-day challenges, which sometimes people call that value-added engineering, but we throw it on product management here, at least at Bloom, is we have unique challenges in keeping fuel cells on. And so when we have such unique challenges, what happens is that sometimes our service team brings product requirements. And then your problem becomes, how do you prioritize something that the market needs versus something that's going to make the product better? And you have to also see how you will balance the engineering team's time with, whether we should be making something that'll generate revenue or something that'll actually save us, field costs. And it becomes an interesting discussion every day. Like, at least I'm running Monte Carlo simulations on showing the inflection point on which to do what. So it can get pretty interesting and challenging, which I don't know if many other companies do that. Like, we start doing such kind of things just to show how should we prioritize our engineering team's time.
And that's what leads to my next question. For all the panelists here, what are some of the key lessons you learned being a product manager after a few years within the renewable energy industry? Anyone like to go first?
I'll just because my answer is going to be quick. What I learned was you have to be an influencer because everybody, Summer said, everybody is your customer and everybody's your friend. And you have to listen to everybody's, at least my thing is, you have to listen to everybody's sad story, and because everybody's a stakeholder. So you're that influencer who's trying to influence and make everybody buy into your thing. So going there every day, cracking every personality, knowing what works with everybody is very important to know. So keeping yourself cheerful, having, a generally happy attitude and a generally caring attitude, that's important because you have to influence a lot of people inside the company.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. Being getting everyone with you on the same page for your product vision, I think it's super important. And also, I would say understand the technical details of a product has been very useful, at least for me, because especially when you talk with the engineering team, to really get something launched, sometimes they can say, oh, this will take that much time and this will be difficult. Sometimes we do brainstorm with them, like how to make the product, how to have an alternative and how to make it work. Because sometimes it seems that we have a dead end and the requirements cannot be met. But with some brainstorming and with some discussion, we actually find a solution. So it's actually very interesting to be part of that process, not just to give requirements, but also be with them on the same page with them to figure out how to build a product. And that innovative process has always been very interesting as well.
Josh, anything you'd like to add?
No, I think Nira and Summer hit it right on the head that you kind of have to, I think that's the most important thing about being a product manager is sort of, guiding the project through everyone's sad stories and problems and hiccups, because really that's your job. That's kind of you are kind of bouncing restrictions off of each other. And I think the one tool I found that helps the most in kind of winning over people is being able to pitch sort of it from a business case point of view. Because if you argue techniques with an engineer, you might win, you might lose, but if you argue techniques with somebody else, you might win. So if they all speak business terms, right? It's like this will lower the cost, this will improve performance, etc. So
this feature will give us $2 million in the next 3 months.
Yeah, people understand that, right?
You have to do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I guess sort of winding down the panel, for someone who just fresh out of college or fresh out of a different industry, what advice would you give to them for those who are interested in becoming PMs in the renewable energy industry? What advice would you give them?
I'll just go first because I'm quick. I think I would go get a job working in whatever vertical you're doing. not doing product management and get really close to the use case and understand the trajectory. I think everyone who's worked on the business or the technical side and they come into product management has sort of that, they can speak in a different language, which I think makes it a lot help, you can help out the people around you and explain things to them a lot better than just being, in the same sort of vertical knowledge wise as maybe everyone else. So that's my advice.
Yeah, I think I have this advice on the similar lines. Get your foot into the door first. If you're not in the renewable energy industry, get into the door today. So it's a very exciting industry, and if you're interested, you can come from consulting. Actually, my first job after graduate school is consulting. So and do a lot of internship during your school years and get exposed to as many industries and different types of companies as possible. That can really broaden your horizon and understand different aspects of the product, and that'll bring a lot of values later when you have to work on different types of products. And then, as Josh said, getting exposed to different part of the verticals, and then will help you a lot in later years. And I would say also try to understand the technical details of the things that you're working on will be very helpful as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Summer and Josh said it really well, like, learning, get your foot in the door. However, sometimes at least I took a longer time getting into product management and went everywhere till I realized, okay, I can finally crack the product management key and get in and all that. But I would also say that reading books on influencing people is important. That's just important in any career, but most important in product management, because I was not measured on any of my technical skills. I was completely measured on all questions about how I would influence people. So like they were clear in Bloom, like you can learn everything on the job, but then, do you know how to actually influence people and be the person who can talk to people? And it's not like I'm a perfect influencer all the time. Some people don't agree to everything I say, but at least learn the skills. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that can't be understated. I don't think is, being everyone's best friend. Yeah, that's half the job probably.
Yep, absolutely. And last question for the panel. What do you see as a notable product gap or niche in the renewable energy space that you see and you think is worth pursuing? And remember, a reminder to the audience, these are personal opinions. They're not investment advices. They're definitely not official company opinions.
Yeah, I'll go. So gaps in the renewable energy industry, I think one of the big gaps we still have, and one that, I'm not speaking for Bloom, but one that Bloom is also challenged and we are trying to solve is making, all kinds of technologies work together. There's no unicorn here that's gonna, solve our climate needs. There's no unicorn, and everybody's one day pitching hydrogen, one day pitching solar, but really understanding how each of them can enable the other. And so I think that the gap is in the understanding. Like I get frustrated when people think that one is the unicorn and try and pitch that. And so we are trying to move away from that. So I think that's the gap in understanding how these things come together. And I understand it's not that easy, but it's not anymore as trivial as putting panels on a roof and then putting a battery and then just shifting things around. Like it's no longer that trivial. So that's the gap.
Okay, I'll go next. It's very hard to say. This is a difficult question. If we know the niche for sure, we'll be all starting a company there, right? So, but I would say maybe talk about some interesting trends that we were saying. Like one, I would say smart home. There are a lot of smart appliances out there, but not a common protocol or people that they're using. So load management and those things are pretty interesting. Electric vehicles is getting bigger every day. So charging infrastructure using battery to back up your home and EV to back up your home. So this concept has been talked about, I think by people for a while, but I think technology breakthrough and there's some other barriers to entry. So. But in general, those are very interesting. And even my vision of the future will be distributed energy around the world, and we can trade energy with our neighbors. So transactive energy, that's very interesting as well. Yeah.
Those are all good ones. I think I have three quick ones. I think renewable energy finance is something that is it's hijacked a lot by tax equity and stuff, and so it's something that I hope that someone's working on somewhere to come forward with nice proposals to update that a little bit. I think finding some way to create high voltage transmission that can be built between the ISOs, I think, is another one. And then, of course, long duration energy storage, which is everyone's got that in the back of their heads. Seasonal. I think those are, if we have those three things, I think it'll really take off.
Well, thank
Yeah,
you. Sorry, go ahead.
One quick thing, the energy finance just reminds me of the very hot topic that's going on right now, which is carbon neutral and carbon offset. So like the carbon market, the carbon credits, that's something that's would be interesting to explore as well.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your time and for dealing with the moderator. We're moving on to the registration questions, those submitted by audience during registration. And to the audience member who are still here with us, please feel free to put your question into the chat, and we're more than happy to ask panelists. And I guess first question for the audience: how will energy storage as a service enable the urban microgrids? What innovative or creative business models are required to achieve that goal?
So energy storage as a service. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think there's agreements in front of the meter where it's like basically a tolling agreement, which seems to make sense and pencil pretty easily. So I think that's a that's a pretty basic and straightforward way to do it. It'd be like basically, you could discharge and charge the battery with sort of a group of people in mind. And I think that would be a pretty straightforward product to build, especially because, with battery costs where they're at now, the revenue stacking, there's plenty of opportunities to finance batteries, which didn't exist 2-3 years ago even. So I think we're closing in on that precipice of batteries being financeable, just like solar and other things are, which is, so that's a key driver to that whole problem.
So
I have no idea what battery as a service is, but I can say that there are certain, I mean, it really gets down to industry and the kind of application. Fuel cells being base power, we look at batteries as, what comes and serves our peaks. So Josh spoke about long duration storage. So it really depends. If the peak is a long peak, then we go in for long duration storage, or a short peak, then shorter storage. But there are times when actually storage doesn't make sense. There are times when it makes sense, and especially when a customer already has solar and storage on site and they want to bring in fuel cells and make a microgrid, that's when we start thinking about integrating it more. But there are times when it doesn't have to, we can do it with our own fuel cells. So it really depends. But there are some, if it's a really peaky load curve, like, I mean, in the retail sector, if it's a non-refrigeration based retail space, then then we bring in short duration storages to cover some of the peak. And also, I don't know what service means there, but batteries do enable microgrids in that sense.
Thank you, Nir. And Summer?
Yeah, I'll just say along the line with what Josh mentioned. Using financing means to do PV plus storage. Battery can even be part of the PPA of the project. So PPA, I mean power purchase agreement. And we even have subscription model in with some companies just for PV, not for battery storage. But I think in the future, as the cost goes down, and I see this as a trend, because that does lower the upfront cost for the customer, especially for homeowners.
Yeah. And that's what leads to, I guess, the second audience question. What is the best way to start a successful renewable energy company? If that's too broad, what are some of the pitfalls to avoid when starting a renewable energy company?
Oh man. you guys want to go? I can go. I can attest to it's difficult because it changes so fast. Like 6 months in this industry is the equivalent change to 20 years in other industries, I would say. And so an idea that you designed and you engineered and you did the math on the finances on 1 year can be totally upended by a macroeconomic change or a policy change in the next year. So you really have to have, I think, start with the broadest idea you possibly can, and there's lots of broad areas to work in, and not be too specific about what you provide. I think because you'll find that no matter how good you are at one thing or what you think your selling point is, there's so many other things that you might not even know. And I think that was the case at Ojjo. Everyone knew pretty much everything there was to know about building a utility scale plant. But when we started getting into it and looking at numbers more, we found that we were more valuable in ways that we didn't first know. So I think having a broad mindset is definitely a good point.
I think there are a lot of big companies in the renewable energy industry now, and the startup, like the funding requirements, actually pretty high as well, the upfront cost and investment. I would say like having a like a great and awesome technology is like very key for a successful company that can address a niche market. I think that's probably the easiest way, because this can achieve much better value, like multiple X of values compared to competitors. And then you have a niche market where you can generate good profit. So even because after you burn a lot of money, you still have a good cash flow and profit in. Yeah, but just one perspective.
I'll just say I haven't started a company, so I'm going to let Josh and Summer say this. I work for a startup that
mainly Josh.
yeah. I work for a startup, and what I saw that they did well was they had enough funding to actually get good people. I mean, either you can get good people to come work for you for free if you really know them well and they trust you and believe in the product, or you have to actually like pay a lot and get good people, and they did both of that well. And I would say that having, to Summer's point, having a niche product that can, somebody wants to buy it if you want to buy if you want an exit with a buy, or having a niche product that can actually make a dent, that's very important. That's what those were the things that I learned, but I don't have the guts to start a company, so I'm not going to say.
Thank you. And Josh, you look forward to your new company.
Yeah, hopefully.
And moving on to the next audience question. What is the background for most product manager in the renewable industry? And what is the career path to eventually become PM? I believe Josh, Summer, and Neru, you guys also mentioned the pathway that took you to your current position. Is there anything else you want to add?
Summer and Neru, you want to go? Yeah.
I mean, I'll just say that having a technical background, I think, Josh, you said that, like, getting the engineering background, especially being able to talk to engineering is very important, at least in certain renewable energy companies, like knowing the hardware piece is very, very important, and gaining their respect and all that. So having an engineering background, I would say, but yeah.
Yeah, I would just say, yeah, like I did I got really into the weeds in my early years, and that really helped me when I got into bigger companies or whatever, because I had all those basics down, and it allowed me to kind of take the next step without having to learn exactly from everybody else. So I think, yeah, the more in depth you can get into something that you're interested in, the better.
Yeah, I think we pretty much mentioned everything at this point. Yeah. So I think maybe the one more thing I'll just add is, besides the people aspect, the engineering aspect is also persistent and resiliency. So really, if you have a vision for the product, drive it to the ground, like be really persistent with it, and then and try to see, and also be open to feedback, right? But I think it needs some resiliency there to really make what you want to happen.
Absolutely, thank you. I think it's drawing down towards more of a personal level. Do you have any story that you can share working with other PMs in the same company? How do you coordinate? We talk about working with sales engineering, product engineering team, but how about working with other PMs? Are there any challenges or solutions that you will be willing to share?
Like other product managers?
Sorry, yeah, that's correct.
Actually, we have a very nice team, so we don't seem to have challenges with product managers. If at all, I have challenges with our own program management team because we fight on the timelines all the time. But that is, I mean, a fight is a very negative term there. I mean, they're really nice people. But I'll say that working with our product, so our products get interesting because there's a platform product manager, and then we are the layered products. So we have to know how the hydrogen or the biogas product managers are bringing their products and when they'll agree to, and then how can we layer it on top. Like some hospitals may actually want biogas fed things just because they want to look clean and green and all that. So knowing like how do you work with the product managers, so that's nice. But otherwise, like all our product management team is really cool and nice, so there's been no challenge. It's mostly challenges with engineering and others. Yeah.
Everyone else, yeah.
Yeah, I would say similar here. We actually all worked pretty well, and we have like weekly meetings to get aligned and give product roadmaps to the C-suite team. But I would say the very important thing to notice that we think about like renewable energy product like PV storage and maybe like backup gateway. We think about them as individual products, and sometimes because some aggregators, they put those individual things from different manufacturers and then they aggregate them together. But for companies like I think Bloom, Tesla, or Enphase, we actually it's a one-stop shop where you can get everything in the same bucket. So that way, it's very important to have a system level product manager as well. So sometimes sometimes I can be the system product manager, and sometimes the other one is like not only the component but also owning the system. It's very important because the communication, the interaction, the control for how the different components work together is key. Like a lot of times the product fails because the system level it may not have good coordination and like the software architecture, the comms architecture is super critical.
I just would say that, starting from the assumption that everyone's on the same page on the product management team, being able to leverage their, if whatever aspects of the process they're owning, that's been a key thing. Because maybe you have a certain point in the company that is more rigid, and if there's other ways around, or if you can build a broader base of support through other people, that's always going to help your case. So
absolutely, thank you all. And I guess given the time, probably the last question from the audience. Congratulations on your master's program, all the best luck. So this as a question from someone who's entering the master plus MBA program. Do you recommend picking one energy resource and focusing on it during your education and the surrounding technology around it before entering the renewable energy space? And is it critical to build niche financial knowledge to build business cases for renewable energy products?
That's a good question. It sounds like you're more on the business side of things. So if I was you, I would focus more on the financial products of renewable energy and understand energy markets. And then it's pretty easy to swim in any technology because things are going to change. I personally believe that solar is going to be huge, and I go to bed dreaming about everywhere being covered in solar. But I'm biased, so don't listen to me. But and to answer your second question, that niche financial knowledge is literally how a lot of this stuff gets done. If you go look at how competitive PPA RFPs are, they're insane, and people are doing all kinds of complicated financial swaps and tricks to get project funding, which I think is really where we're heading. The technology is going to level off, and it's going to be a lot of financing. So that's my answer.
Totally agree. Yeah, I think getting in from a finance perspective is a great advice. Like maybe taking courses in finance, but also some basic knowledge in energy, renewable energy, electrical, or how the utility grid works, because everything is related. Even if we want to be, microgrid or distributed energy base, there will still be the grid. And it's very interesting how the grid works, like the transmission, distribution, like the generation sources, like how the entire system works. And having that perspective is very interesting. A lot of the financial products are also related to market participation. When you have storage, how do you participate in the market? And there are a lot of interesting products there. So, or even from what Josh said, from a PPA perspective, how to do a special purpose vehicle. All companies, I think, will need support in that if they want to go the financing route. So those will be easy to get into easier to get into all companies.
Yeah, and I'll just add that, gain any and all knowledge. You never know which is going to be useful. And, there will always be things that are not so useful. In the sense, I mean, coming from a microgrid space, like I talk about hydrogen microgrids, but can I build a hydrogen fuel cell? No, I won't even be close to a product manager for hydrogen fuel cell. And I remember I was giving a talk on hydrogen microgrids to, folks in this university in Saudi Arabia. And one of my friends who's like a geology person from Canada calls me and says, "Oh, you absolutely need to talk about how hydrogen is made." I was like, that is not even my expertise. So, just because you know how hydrogen is made, because a geologist tells you, doesn't mean that, you know anything about a hydrogen fuel cell. But of course I knew, how do you speak about a hydrogen microgrid? So really it's very tricky what knowledge you should get, but get all kinds of knowledge. And so I did learn about a lot of hydrogen and what they do in Alberta that night. So please learn everything.
Thank you. And one final question from the audience. Is there a lot of new technology development or R&D in renewable energy? And how do product managers like yourself evaluate the feasibility of a new technology?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
Go ahead.
Go
ahead, Josh.
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Yeah, there's tons. There's several accelerators in the East Bay that are doing, battery like analysis via vibration, and there's all, there's literally everyone is trying something, which is great, and I'm very happy to see that. And most of them are going to fail, so it's very hard, and really you're going to have to, if you're going into those deep things that are going to be in the market 10, 20 years down the road, you really got to start thinking about is that company going to be able to last that long? And to be able to come up with a new product, or are they just going to come up with some innovations and eventually flame out? So, I think it's a noble adventure to try one of those things. And I don't think people should be scared of giving that a try, because we need all of those. We're going to need those things in the future. So failing is part of the process.
Yeah, and adding to that, I think as product managers, when we see a new technology coming up, like two most important things to evaluate is cost and market, right? So how much market will it help us to gain, and how much cost does it take to have this new technology? And does it make sense to work on this ourselves, and does it make sense to incorporate it ourselves? So those are important aspects to evaluate, for sure.
Yeah, I'll just add that, if you're in a disruptive place, then of course, absolutely keep thinking about how the disruptive technology will do. Read up, keep in touch with all the news. Like Josh said and Summer said, things are changing constantly. So you have to read up which country is calling for what climate goals, what are they pulling for, are they going more solar, are they going more hydrogen or hydro? Like knowing all that is very important, so that you know where things are going. And it's no longer just the US market, it's like the world market, and knowing where different countries are investing and what are they investing on and all that. So it's a very ever-changing world. Like what keeps some of us awake is, hydrogen, and where is it going to go? And then how does biogas fit in, and all this, and climate goals of countries, and how are we going to do this safely for people? So just, there's no easy answer. You just have to be on your toes all the time, knowing the technology.
Yeah, I guess I that's a great answer, Nira. And I guess I would just add one more thing to answer the question a little bit simpler than I did. is, yeah, just look at the simple business case. It can be a very simple financial model. If it costs you so much per year to develop something and eventually you'll have this much of a market, or you can generate this much extra energy, you should be able to figure that out pretty quickly. And if it's the more confusing that is, then you're probably in a company that's going to fail. So, and that's not a bad thing, like I said. So.
Well, thank you very much. Summer, I believe you had to head out for your 7 p.m. meeting. Thank you all very much for joining. And for Neru and Josh, if you guys would like to advertise, if you guys have job openings or looking for talent or just talk about a company, you have 1 minute. Go.
Go ahead, Neru.
We are looking for talent, and so anybody who is looking for a product manager position, please feel free to contact me. I don't know if I have my email, but I can look me up on LinkedIn and contact me. We are looking for product and program managers. I don't know if it'll be entry level, but I can check with my management. But yeah, hit us up.
Yeah, I'm happy to. If anyone has any questions, or if they're looking for a job, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to answer questions or help out any way I can.
Yeah, same here. Any questions and things that you want to discuss, feel free to reach out to me. I think Derek has sent out the EIN network, WhatsApp and Slack channel information. I think you guys can find me there as well, or through LinkedIn. I would love to have more discussion and interesting topics to talk about in the future. And also, I would say for all the companies that I'm working with, if you're interested, let me know as well.
Well, thank you all very much for your time. Thank you, audience, for your patience, and have a great day, evening, or afternoon. Thank you all.
Thank you. Nice talking with you all.
Thank you. Bye.